All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're tearing down David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. And look, this isn't just some self-help book. It's basically a manual for how to completely rewire your mind. It's about turning pain into your superpower and just defying every single odd that's stacked against you. It's a raw, unfiltered look at how one man went from being a victim of unbelievable suffering to becoming a symbol of what the human spirit is capable of.
Goggins starts the whole thing off with this gut punch of a quote. He says most of us are walking around addicted to comfort, embracing a victim's mentality, and unaware of their true potential. It's a pretty direct challenge, right? It makes you stop and ask yourself, okay, am I stuck in a comfort zone? Am I making excuses? And what am I really capable of anyway?
And this is what makes his story so absolutely mind-blowing. On one side, you have the hand life dealt him, born into a world of horrific abuse from his father, deep poverty, and just relentless racism. He literally said, "Life dealt me a bad hand." But then you look at the other side, a retired Navy SEAL, one of the world's top ultramarathon runners, a Guinness World Record holder. The question the rest of this book answers is, how in the world do you get from that to this?
So to understand how Goggins built this insane resilience, you first have to understand the hell that he escaped. He calls this part of his life, "I should have been a statistic," and you're about to see exactly why that's not an exaggeration. This timeline really just scratches the surface. His childhood wasn't a childhood. It was a nightmare. It was completely dominated by his abusive father, Toughness. Instead of school and playing, Goggins and his brother were forced to work all night, every night, at their dad's skating rink. And those nights were filled with just unimaginable violence. Even after his mom made a brave escape with him, they just found themselves in a new kind of hell. Extreme poverty.
And just when you think it couldn't possibly get any worse, escaping his dad just threw him into a brand new kind of terror. They moved to this small, mostly white town in Indiana, and he immediately becomes a target. He faced intense racism every single day. And one day, he opens his school workbook and finds this death threat. Spelled wrong, but the message was crystal clear. He was completely alone, just taking hits from every single direction.
So how do you possibly break a cycle of trauma like that? For Goggins, it came down to one powerful, life-altering tool: the accountability mirror. This is the exact moment he stopped blaming the world for his problems and started taking radical, brutal ownership of his own life. So picture this. Goggins is in his early 20s. He's working a dead-end job, spraying for cockroaches, he weighs almost 300 pounds, and he feels like a total failure. Then one night, he's just flipping through TV channels, and he lands on a documentary about Navy SEALs going through Hell Week. Now, most of us would see that and think, wow, that's insane, no thanks. But Goggins saw something else. He saw his way out. Right there at his absolute lowest point, he decided he was going to become one of them. And this is the tool he invented to make that impossible goal a reality: the accountability mirror. This is not about positive affirmations or telling yourself you're great. It's the complete opposite. It's about standing in front of that mirror and telling yourself the raw, unfiltered, ugly truth. He says, if you're fat, tell yourself you're fat. Why are you still lying to yourself? It's about owning every single part of your reality, no matter how much it hurts, so you can build something new from a foundation of pure truth. So, how did he actually do it? It wasn't just a thought exercise. He made it physical. He'd stand in front of the mirror and just confront all the hard truths about himself. Then, he'd literally write his goals and all his current failings on Post-it notes and stick them right on the mirror. He had to look at them every single day. It wasn't about shaming himself. It was about making it impossible to lie to the man in the reflection anymore.
Okay, so once Goggins took ownership, he knew he was about to face an unbelievable amount of pain to get where he wanted to go. So he started building the mental tools he'd need to withstand it. This is where he starts to forge what he calls an armored mind.
The first tool is the calloused mind. And it's a perfect analogy, right? When you lift weights, your hands get torn up. But over time, they build calluses and get stronger. Goggins says your mind works the exact same way. He reframed every horrible thing that ever happened to him, the abuse, the racism, all of it. Not as trauma that made him weaker, but as brutal training that was making him tougher. Those beatings from his dad, they became his first lesson in how to endure pain. He started building his first mental calluses.
But what happens when you're in the middle of that pain and your brain is just screaming at you to quit? That's where his next tool comes in. He calls it the cookie jar. It's this imaginary jar where you store every single past victory, every obstacle you've ever overcome. So when you're suffering and you feel like you have nothing left, you mentally reach into that cookie jar, pull out a win and remind yourself exactly who you are and what you've already survived.
And these are some of the cookies that were in his jar. And they weren't just huge, world-changing things. One cookie was just the fact that he escaped his abusive father. Another was studying like a madman to pass the military entrance exam after failing it twice. Another one was losing 106 pounds in less than 3 months, just so he could get into the Navy. Every single one of those wins, big or small, becomes fuel for the next fight.
So now, he's got an accountable mindset, a calloused mind, and a cookie jar full of fuel. Goggins was ready to see what he was really made of. And that led him to his most famous concept, the one that proves this all really works, the 40% rule.
40%. According to David Goggins, that number, right there, it defines these self-imposed limits of pretty much every single person on this planet.
And here it is, the 40% rule. The idea is that our brain has this built-in governor, right? It's a survival instinct. It's designed to protect us, so it starts screaming about pain and exhaustion way before we're actually at our physical limit. Goggins says that when your mind is telling you you're done, that you have nothing left, you've only used about 40% of your actual capacity. There's a whole other 60% in the tank, but you can only get to it if you push through that first wall of penning.
And the proof? Well, it's his entire life story. Most people can't survive one Navy SEAL Hell Week. Goggins, because of injuries and all sorts of setbacks, went through it 3 times in a single year just to graduate. That is the definition of living past that 40% mark.
Then he decides to become an elite ultra-endurance athlete. We're talking about running more than 60 ultramarathons. That includes the Badwater 135, a 135-mile non-stop race through Death Valley in the summer. The asphalt gets so hot it can literally melt your shoes. He didn't just finish it, he placed near the top.
And just in case that wasn't enough, he set his sights on the Guinness World Record for pull-ups. This isn't just about being strong. This is about battling mind-numbing monotony and repetitive pain for 17 straight hours and knocking out a ridiculous 4,030 pull-ups. This is what life looks like on the other side of that 40% wall.
But it begs the question, right? Why? Why do all of this? What's the point of embracing so much suffering? For Goggins, the answer is all wrapped up in a simple 2-word question he asks himself every single day.
What if? That's it. Goggins says this is his ultimate weapon for silencing all the doubters, especially the one that lives inside his own head. When people told him something was impossible, he just countered with this question. What if I can do it? What if I'm capable of way more than anyone, including me, thinks is possible? It's a question that just blows the doors open to possibility instead of slamming them shut. And this final quote, man, it gets to the absolute core of his whole philosophy. It all comes down to your internal dialogue. Goggins' entire life is proof that if you can master that conversation, if you can change what you tell yourself when you are hurting and want to quit, you can fundamentally change who you are and what you're capable of. So I guess the real question he leaves us with is, what conversation are you having with yourself?